Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. You've got a story to share, a message to inspire, and a passion ready to ignite. But where do you start? The world is waiting for your voice. With From Idea to Implementation, Start Your Own Podcast, you'll get the roadmap to turn your vision into reality. This isn't just a course, it's your launching pad. Step by step, we'll break down the process from defining your purpose to recording your first episode so you can finally share your voice with confidence. Stop overthinking it and start doing it. Your voice has the power to connect and lead. Are you ready to use it? Join the waitlist today. Your podcast journey starts now. The world is waiting. You can find the link to sign up for the waitlist in the show notes. We'll see you soon. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Trish Meekins. She is the owner of Nikaanaganaa Counselling and Learning Centre. She is a counselor, a teacher, a social worker, and a certified consulting hypnotist. Welcome, Trish. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for inviting me, for sure.
Oh, it is my pleasure and my honor. We were just laughing. I was laughing my head off air before we jumped on because I was trying to pronounce the name of Trish's Counseling and Learning Center. So Trish was laughing at me. I was laughing at myself. We had some laughs before we got on air. So anyways, I am so happy to have you here, Trish. Thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. I am excited to share about all of the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you're doing, a little bit about your story and your journey. So with that being said, let's jump right in. How long have you been working as a teacher and counselor for, Trish?
Actually, they've gone hand in hand since my first professional job, really.
Oh.
So back when I was 22, 23 years old, the first role I had was being a First Nations counselor for at-risk youth in an alternative school. And that's what I had applied for. And then when I got the job, they told me I'd be teaching as well. So
surprise.
So I had very little time to sort of get my stuff together. And I taught the history and I taught life skills. And then it's just gone from there. Every single position I've had since then, I've actually done the counseling and the teaching.
Amazing. And so I know that as a counselor and teacher, obviously your focus is around First Nations culture and history. Can you share a little bit about the story of your journey to becoming a First Nations counselor and teacher?
Yeah. So I grew up in and around my home community, which is Nikaanaganaa or Chippewas and Awash here on the Bruce Peninsula. And as a teenager living on reserve, many of my friends were experiencing hardships in their lives. And when I just seemed to be a natural counselor to them. And I know that I spent many a long night with some of them to make sure that they lived through the night. And at a very young age, I became pregnant at 17 years old. And I really wanted to do something where I helped my people and especially help the children and the youth of our people. So I went into child and youth work, actually. So that's what I initially went to school for. And in terms of the history, it was very interesting because like growing up, you just grow up who you are.
Yeah.
And not really knowing or understanding that there was any difference between being a First Nations person and not.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being a very young person and hearing somebody yelling away on the street about those effing Indians, they were saying. And I was like, what is this person like freaking out about?
Yeah.
I couldn't understand. And so that was sort of my first, what is going on there? And so then I began to get more involved with the culture through my uncles, actually, were the first ones. And my mom was a great influence in terms of the culture as well, even though we didn't hardly know much about the culture,
right?
Because of everything going underground through the Indian Act, of course. But I had really good role models, like my grandfather is Will Murnajuan, who was chief of our community and founding member and chief of the Union of Ontario Indians back in the day, and my Aunt Verna, who was a poet and author. And they were like great people to look up to, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how have your cultural roots and heritage influenced your approach now to counseling and teaching?
So I go from a holistic perspective, and that is the way that I was trained. And if we look at the medicine wheel, there are 4 parts of self. So that medicine wheel is a framework for many different things, but in terms of a holistic viewpoint, it takes into account the spirit, which is your vision, your emotion, which is your guiding light, I would say, your thoughts, which come from that vision and allows you to be on the path of where you'd like to see yourself. And then, of course, you're living and being and doing. So the way that Western culture has been for a very long time is that what are you thinking and how are you behaving? And if you're not behaving right, you must not be thinking right. And so take some medication so you can begin to act right.
Yeah.
Without ever looking at the whole other half of ourselves, which is that spiritual and emotional part of being. So that's
getting into the root of the problem, not just putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
It's ridiculous. So much needs to change in Western culture around this thing. You have to get to the root of the problem. You can, because that's what they've been doing forever, but shit needs to change. We need to get into, find out what the root of the cause is for the issues that people are dealing with, health, mental health, all of the things, because it's not as simple as just handing out a prescription. Here's some pills. There you go. Be on your way. You're zombifying people.
Absolutely. And the thing is that once you begin taking these pills, then if there's any kind of adverse effects on the body, they say, then take this pill to ensure that you're not feeling nauseous. Or so you become taking all of these different prescriptions, and you're no better off than you were in the beginning.
You're actually probably worse off than you were in the beginning, right?
That's right. That's right. So there are ways for sure. And when I do use like hypnotherapy, of course, I use EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and revitalization, which is bilateral movements that allow for the brain and the body to process the emotion from the situation that was experienced. And then, of course, just reality and talk therapy, as well as introducing that spiritual part to self. Because I think that when you have a vision in your mind of, or maybe you don't even have a vision in your mind, maybe, and I think that this is where a lot of people come from, is that they don't have a vision in their mind. And that vision is being in service to others.
Yes.
And so whatever it is, there must be a component of being in service to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe wholeheartedly that this is a huge part of why we're all here, is to be in and of service to one another. There are other modalities that work better than Western medicine. And that's not to say we can discount Western medicine completely, because we can't. No. We do need it to a certain degree. But I think that people are now starting to awaken, and they're seeing and realizing, wait a minute, there's so many different ways of doing things. We don't have to heal this with a pill, or with this or with that. There are other methods, hypnotherapy, EMDR, EFT tapping, Reiki. There's so many other things, and more of the Eastern medicine influence, the spirituality piece of it. So people are starting to wake up and step into their spirituality, which I think is great. I would love to see a world, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of it, but a world where Eastern and Western medicine come together and work together. That's Absolutely. The ideal solution.
Yeah, so I've been really on a journey of learning in terms of spirituality from all different walks of life. And what I've come to realize is that we all have a piece of this pie.
Yeah.
And it's not just Western and Eastern, it's all 4 races of man coming together. So when you say Western and Eastern, to me, that I think of, how society runs in most colonized countries, being, Canada, United States, and of course in Europe, but also then the Eastern, the Asian belief system, that is also a part of it, but also the red race, which is the Indigenous peoples, and, really understanding that we are a part of Mother Earth and not something that is apart. So I find that it's really interesting when you look at how I say those things. When we say apart, it means that we are distanced from.
Yes.
So when we say apart as 2 different words,
included,
we are that we are a part of something.
Yes.
And so we are a part of all things here, and we all hold a piece of that pie in order to live holistically, is what I'm coming to learn.
The Indigenous culture have been healing through spirituality and all of these other methods for So
That's right.
why don't we bring it all together
That's
and
right.
utilize all of the pieces? We would be so
Absolutely.
much better off.
Yeah, so that's really been my thing. I've really been integrating, I've been learning more and more about all the chakras and keeping those things in balance. But even in terms of Christianity, I've actually found a really good podcast online about Christianity and how, and I'm not here to offend anyone, of course, but about the whole story of Jesus in the Bible as being a physiological journey within the body, not necessarily an outside thing that we're looking at and that we should take lessons from, that actually our bodies go through this story. So it's really been quite interesting and integrating that into my practice as well, which is for me, and Christianity, First Nations people and Christianity doesn't go hand in hand
Yes.
too often, right? So
But at least you're not oblivious to it and you are open to. And I think that's another thing we need to look at is being more open to exploring other options as a human race.
Absolutely. Yes. It's about that unity. And this is a contentious topic as well. But I know that it's been a prevalent one, and it's been one that I've really been searching for the answer to for a long time, just in terms of family members, is the pride. Like when I look at the pride flag, it is actually the chakra colors, but in reverse, so flipped upside down. And according to First Nations culture, there is a prophecy that says that the rainbow people will come together. And so when we think of that rainbow, we automatically go to that pride. But it is not about the pride, it is about the unity.
Right.
It is about when I think about all of the different modalities or belief systems that other cultures in the world have, I think that it's more about the unity of that chakra system that will decide whether or not we continue to live here on Mother Earth.
Absolutely. We need to learn to treat Mother Earth better than we've been treating her because she's only going to take it for so long.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Other than the ones you mentioned previously, who were some of your key influences and role models in your life that shaped your passion for counseling and teaching within the community?
So a key person would be my Auntie Colleen. She actually did so many things in such a brief time that she was here. She actually passed away from breast cancer when she was 42 years old.
Wow.
But she really did a lot of things for our people. Of course, she had some really good role models. As I say, we have some pretty amazing people in our family lineage. But she began a business down in the Walpole, Sarnia area where it was called Personal Skills and Development. And I'm named after her, actually. My middle name is Colleen. And so I always really, I guess, had that bond with her. And I saw what she was looking to do for the youth of our people as well. So she was one of the founding members of Nokikwe in London, which is, Kwe means working woman.
Okay.
She was actually part of a group called Akikwe way back in the day, long before. I don't know if you've noticed, there's new stamps out right now with grandmother Josephine Ba, who did all of these water walks. So my Auntie Colleen was one of the founding members of that type of thing, like honoring the water, on making those offerings to them as we did at one time. So she was really quite ahead of her time. And I was so very honored and blessed to have her in my life and to really be that positive role model. So I would absolutely say that my Auntie Colleen was.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. How do you incorporate traditional wisdom and practices into the work you do?
I'm pretty straightforward. I mean, there's no beating around the bush, I guess, with me. I say what I need to say, and maybe it's channeled. I don't know how you want to say it, but whatever comes to what I really truly feel that this person might need, I bring it up.
Yeah.
And I think that it works for probably 98% of my clientele. Of course, they either accept it or they don't. And maybe they don't initially, but then they eventually come back and they say, okay, I'm down to try this now because everything else that I've been trying is just not working. And that's okay. Like I have to meet people for where they're at. And it's no offense to me if they don't feel that this is not for them at this time. But I do incorporate all of my experiences, my traditional knowledge and teachings that I have experienced with my counseling and my teaching.
Beautiful. How would you describe then your teaching philosophy, and how does it align with the values and traditions of the First Nations communities?
So I do use a lot of my own personal life experience when I am doing a lot of my teaching, just because I've had I come from an interesting background in terms of identity, I guess you could say, because the Indian Act or the government tells us as First Nations people who is First Nations and who is not First Nations. And so
Wow.
that's a whole nother
That's a whole
thing.
podcast episode.
Yeah, but I use that experience in my own life to teach others about it. So I do a history presentation on the cultural awareness. So if I were to do a full day of cultural awareness, I would do history, and so I would use the 7 or 8 fire prophecies that we've had since time immemorial, as we knew that the newcomers would be coming to Turtle Island. So I actually start out from creation and I go all the way till now. And so throughout that, which is a 2.5 to 3 hour presentation, believe it or not, is just the highlights of that history. And I use personal experience there. And then in the afternoon, I would do circle teachings. And so that's where I would bring in the teachings that I have received from many different teachers that I have learned from in the Medewan Lodge, and also who are independent learners as well, and knowledge keepers and teachers, ceremonial people. And I use those teachings that I received to help people integrate how to live a good life here according to those 7 grandfather teachings. That is also one of a very old teaching that we have amongst First Nations people.
Can you just quickly, if you don't mind, sharing what the 7 principles are?
The 7 grandfather teachings? Yeah. And I'm going to have to look them up.
I know I just sprung this on you. I'm really curious.
So the 7 grandfather teachings, what that is all about is at a point in time when we knew that the newcomers were coming, we were having to move across Turtle Island, because there were millions of our people here prior to contact, and I shouldn't say prior to contact, because we did have other nations from other countries in the world who would come and visit and carry on.
Right.
It was the ones who wanted to come and stay.
Okay.
And because that was happening, we actually were going into other nations' territories. And so when we were going into other nations' territories, warring began. Before that, we always respected each other's ancestral lands, and we lived amongst each other here very peacefully.
Yeah.
And so it was when we were having to go through other territories or into other nations' places that they live, this began, of course, some conflict.
Yeah.
And when that conflict began, they say that there was a young boy who went into and just left his village and went into the bush. And while he was there, he met up with 7 grandfathers who gave him a teaching to take back to his nation.
Right.
And so the 7 grandfathers are, and I have finally found them here, just so that I am sure that I'm not missing one. Usually when I do it, of course, I have a slide deck that I have. Yes. But those 7 grandfather teachings are love, so ensuring that self-care, which is represented by the eagle. We have truth, which is represented by the turtle. Bravery, which is represented by the bear. Respect, represented by the buffalo. Humility, represented by the wolf. Honesty is represented by Sabe. And Sabe is how we say is the name that we use in the language for Bigfoot, or I don't know what else.
Sasquatch.
Yeti, Sasquatch.
Yeah.
There's all different names.
Yeah.
We have wisdom that is represented by the beaver. And these 7 grandfather teachings actually also have a place on that medicine wheel that I talked about, that framework. So this is one of the circle teachings that coincide with many other circle teachings. Okay. But yeah, so those are the ones that we really ideally would like to follow, I would say, those principles. But because of the Indian Act, of course, all of our teachings became illegal in 1869. We were not able to practice those teachings openly until Canada and the United States were looking at signing the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. But for Canada specifically, because we had a piece of legislation that governed our First Nations people, we could be hung for treason.
That's insane.
By practicing our beliefs.
7, just for practicing your belief system.
Yeah.
These 7 teachings,
Mm-hmm.
that is fucking mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you did not
Absolutely.
have free will to practice these teachings that were in your lineages, in your history, part of who First Nations people are.
Absolutely. And the other thing that is so mind-blowing to me, and I'm learning more and more because I'm always wanting to improve my history
Yeah.
when I go out. And I think I learned this in school, but I was just taught it again about how when the War of 1812 happened, that there was only 1,600 British soldiers. There was over 10,000 Anishinaabe warriors who
Wow.
defended our border. There was over 10,000 Haudenosaunee with the Iroquois Confederacy
Yeah.
that defended our borders. Like, it's just it's like this much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, more British soldiers were to protect the fort in Quebec or the citadel or whatever in Quebec than there was to actually defend the border.
Unbelievable.
It's just,
I did not know that.
I know, absolutely.
Wow.
But it was through this allyship of the Crown for our people because they needed our people to survive here on Turtle Island, which is North America, of course.
Yeah.
So in order to survive here, they needed our people. The Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenni Lenape are the ones that are here, the nations that are here in southwestern Ontario. So there are many more nations throughout Turtle Island that I don't even know all.
Yeah.
All of them.
Fucking mind-blowing. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that and educating me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of incorporating Indigenous knowledge and perspectives into mainstream education?
Very important. The hard thing about this is, and I have looked into this being an educator, being in education, actually, because as I said, I was an education counselor and a teacher for the secondary school when I first started working. I know that it's very important. The only issue with this is that when government puts out a tender to teach in the education system, they state that any knowledge that you bring to the system becomes their information.
Seriously? They own the information.
They would own the information. So that's really what has halted me from coming forward. Now, if I am hired on contract to go into schools, I would absolutely go and teach what I know to the young people there. And I think more and more young people or more and more of our people are reaching out and trying to do what they can on a contractual basis. But, it gets really sticky when you get involved with government and ownership and all of those kinds of things. So I think it's very important. I think that they are muddling through as they can, but you have non-Indigenous teachers teaching our history from the government perspective. So it's really skewed.
Yeah.
And I have an example of that, actually. I was a adjudicator for a history fair for grades 7 and 8s. And I had gone up, and some of the young people had chosen residential schools for their topic that they wanted to speak about. And I remember reading on this young person's project that there was 2,000 to 4,000 First Nations children that went to residential schools. And I was like, 2,000 to 4,000. I said, you really need to make sure you check your sources, really get some accurate numbers around this. And you could tell that she was very upset.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I carried on my day, and I was getting ready to leave, and her parents had come by the end of the day. So then she came, she wanted to show me the resource that she actually had, where she had got that from. And it was actually from a Government of Canada website. And I was like I have this one slide in my slide deck when I do the history, and right there alone, there's probably 1,000 First Nations children in front of one residential school on one day. In 1 year, over 100 years of residential school legacy here.
Wow.
Residential schools began in 1883, and they did not close until 1996. So we're well over 100 years of residential schools. And when I really want to make the point about this is that our people came forward and even offered part of our annuities to be able to make better relationships, because really at the core of our people, that's what it's all about, is about making relationships. But John A. Macdonald took that opportunity And there's quotes online that you can read all over the place, of course, about how he says, I don't want Indians to just learn how to read and write English. He says, I want to remove the Indian from the child. And there was an assimilation process because, of course, we have to look at the treaties that were signed and made, where we are the true stewards and landholders here in Turtle Island. And these treaties that were entered into, I guess 1763 being the first real fiduciary agreement that is still a living piece of legislation today. If there are no more First Nations people, there's no one to be accountable to.
Yeah.
And I think that was really the aim or the goal. And yet here we are in 2024 going strong. And one of the fastest growing populations in Canada, 4.9%, is all we make up of the Canadian population. Yet we still have 1 in 3 of our children in the child welfare system. We have 1 in 3 of our people incarcerated. There are hotel rooms full of our children where they are being removed from families of origin. There are jails out west that are full 100% First Nations occupied.
Holy shit.
This is what I'm saying. It's just, it continues. It continues.
So how the fuck do we make progress? How do we... Holy shit.
So it's very mind-blowing. Yes, it is. But it is also, the way that I look at it is we all need to heal ourselves. That is really that's
where it starts.
That's really where I've come to. I could bang my head against the wall and scream and shout and drive myself insane with the frustration of it all. And I have done that.
I'm sure.
Actually.
Yeah.
But when I did that, I knew that this was not the answer.
Yeah.
And I even look at the legacy of my family, of the Najwan family, when I feel that they have found themselves in the very same situation of almost driving themselves crazy, even with being as forward thinking as they were. I think that if we can all of us, treaty people, can begin to look within and heal ourselves, that all of the byproduct will also heal itself, because we would not be able to continue an oppressive way of living if we were to heal ourselves.
That's it. Everything starts with us, and then it ripples out to everyone else. And that is heartbreaking and sad and just fucking horrible.
It is horrible.
I've said this so many times. There needs to be a core, and I've been thinking about this. I talked about it in one of my episodes a little while back. There needs to be a course on how to be a good human, because that's what it comes down to. It's just being a good human being. It doesn't cost you anything to be kind to others, no matter what race, religion, and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't make a fucking difference. We all come into this world the same way, and we all go out the same way. We all bleed the same color blood, no matter what religion you subscribe to, no matter what race you are. We all bleed the same color. We are all one here.
Absolutely. But
we are one people.
When there's so many of us that have been inflicted with trauma throughout our whole lives, it actually causes damage to the brain, so that we are not making sound decisions when we make decisions. So this is why I think that I am in the healing field, is so that we can help people to at least remove that emotion from the situations, so that we can begin to make better decisions for ourselves. And having a course in kindness, I think that would be the lovely ideal, but some people just can't get that because of the trauma they've experienced. So being able to look at it and move beyond it is really, you have to find whatever it is that will bring you beyond that. And if that's Christianity, if that's
whatever it is, but maybe what needs to happen is those two things go hand in hand. We put people through whatever it is to help them heal through the trauma, whether it's coaching, therapy, whatever it is. And then we move them into this course of how to be a good human. I think it would make the world so much. And I know it sounds all airy fairy and ideal and all but it needs to have, something needs to change. We need to make changes. And I think this is a good starting place. I think everything actually starts with conversation. Conversation is the catalyst for change. If we don't talk about things, nothing will ever fucking change. And that means having the difficult conversations that people don't want to have. And just, I think also people need to learn to listen. People don't listen. People listen to respond primarily, but we need to enter into conversational spaces with an open heart, an open mind, and open ears. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a fucking reason.
Absolutely.
So that's where it needs to start. It's conversation, helping whoever it is that needs help through trauma to deal with, to get to that place of at least starting the healing process. Then let's teach them how to be good humans. It does not cost you anything to be nice to someone.
Absolutely. And I think self-reflection is a really big one. And it's not only listening. So it's listening, taking that in, and then doing that self-reflection and seeing, like, we need relationships so that we can gauge where we are in the world, of course. And so I think that those relationships that we have with others, we need to self-reflect on that. And even just saying, does this relationship make me feel good, or does this relationship make me feel bad?
And if it feels bad, see you later.
Yes, you don't have to be a part of it.
You don't.
No, you don't.
But that relationship with self is the most important relationship that all of us, every single human on this planet, that relationship with self is the most important and longest standing relationship you will ever have in your entire life. So you need to get right with you first. You need to do that work and feel good in you. Then it goes out to other relationships. And let's be honest, we can't do this by ourselves. Relationships and connection are the foundation for everything in life, business, life, all of it. We need relationships. Community is huge.
Absolutely.
It's the most, one of the, sorry, I shouldn't say it is one of the most important pieces is community.
Absolutely. And even when we look even way back when on the caveman days or whatever you want to say, it was The Croods was a really good movie to show that we actually needed each other to survive. And we still need each other to survive. Yes, we have all of the modern things for survival these days. But when it really comes down to it, you could have all of those things. And if you have no one in your life to share it with,
it doesn't mean shit.
No,
it's nothing.
Right.
It's inconsequential completely. What impact do you hope to have on your students through your work as a teacher of First Nations culture and history?
I think everything that I was just speaking of. I would really like to have people to begin to self-reflect and see where they sit in the world. And even in terms of, like I said, that medicine wheel, with having that spirit, that vision for ourselves, having them really begin to self-reflect to see if whatever it is that they are doing, that they're actually doing what they have been called to do. I often bring up when I teach about the 7 grandfather teachings, that truth is to be able to understand what that is for you. And sometimes I think that we take on positions for the money. We take on the positions for the notoriety. But if it's not sitting right within your heart, you're not going to be happy. So I think that, like, really trusting in the unknown, which is definitely has always been a struggle for me and still continues to be a struggle for me. I'm always self-reflecting and seeing what the right direction in life is for me. You know, and we get those little niggling feelings. We get those little underlying thoughts, those messages. And I do also a podcast called Ancestral Ascensions. I've just begun that. And so it's about stories of transformation. And the premise is, like, the people that I interview is like, how did you know to make those decisions? Do you feel that it was ancestral guidance? Or do you feel that it's even a higher self guidance? But the way that we believe is about the 7 generation teaching. I was always taught that any decisions that we make in this day and age is about the next 7 generations.
Right.
So I always think, thank goodness I had such powerful previous generations that lived their lives in gratitude with those cultural belief systems and those kinds of things, that has allowed me to be strong as a person today. But we all have those. So keeping in mind what our ancestors have done for us, and then how we are going to make good decisions for our next generations. So the relationship with self, but also keeping in mind that we will be the ancestors for those future generations.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to impact into the future for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But you think about all the people in this world that, going back to what you're saying about loving what you do and loving where you are, and all the people in this world that are working in jobs they absolutely fucking hate. They're miserable.
Yeah.
Like, we only have a short amount of time on this earth in these bodies that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So why not try and figure out a way to do what makes you happy, do what makes your heart sing? That's
Absolutely. I truly believe that we don't have to be in positions that we hate.
no.
The reason why we hate it is because creator or higher self or whatever it is that you believe in is trying to guide you to a different life path so that you can share your gifts with the world, because ultimately
Yes.
that's what we're here for.
Yes,
And that is that
absolutely.
humility that we talk about in those 7 grandfather
Yeah.
teachings, is the humility. It's not about keeping our head down and being humble. It's about finding our gifts and sharing them with the world.
Absolutely.
And that is the whole premise of the circle. When we
Yeah.
think about circle teachings, is that we are all to stand beside each other, and that no one is in front of us or behind us, that it is our actual responsibility of being a living being to find out what your gifts
Yes.
are and sharing them with the world.
Yes. I love that you said that, because I was just going to
Mhm.
say it is your responsibility as a human being on this planet to find your
Absolutely.
gift and share your gift with the world. The world needs your gift. The world
That's
needs
right.
you. No one
That's
is above anyone. We all need to stand shoulder to shoulder. No one is
Absolutely.
better than anyone else. We
That's
are
right.
all equal. We are all one. So, but all these, I love talking about this because so many people get stuck in that hamster wheel of,
Mhm.
I need my job. I have to stay here because I've got all of these things that I need to pay for. I can't leave my job because of the security, because of the safety, because I have all of this stuff that I need to pay for. Because
Yeah.
all of this ties into the conditioning and how we've been brought up and how we've been taught that we need to live. If we've learned nothing over the past 3.5, 4 years of what we've been through, things don't have to be that way. That, I think, was one of the greatest gifts that COVID gave us, is showing us that life does not have to be lived this way. It's the great reset, whatever you want to call it. It's
Yeah.
there. That was a huge
Absolutely.
teaching for people.
Absolutely.
And some people
Absolutely.
took the lesson from it. A lot didn't, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunate. But at least it woke some people up to realize
Yes.
that no, things don't have to be this way anymore. It's just, I was
Absolutely.
speaking with a woman who works in corporate, or who worked in corporate, and she was saying that she works with a lot of high-end corporate people. And she's saying people just are refusing to go into the office. Like, why do I need to be there? I could do this job from home. I don't need to be
Yes.
in that space.
Yeah.
So it's a step in the right direction, but we still have a lot of work to do and a long way to go.
Yes. And when we're kept busy, we don't have time for that self-reflection. We don't have time to really see what it is that's important to life. I took a crazy job actually through COVID, and I did it for about a year and a half, and it was all consuming. And what actually kind of snapped me out of it is I was asked to go speak at a world conference in Australia on self-care from the Indigenous perspective. And I was like, at that moment in time, I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind, and it really made me think about what was important. Absolutely. And the sad thing was is that I missed almost 2 full years of my children and my grandchildren's lives. And what really got me to realize that is that I thought my kids were turning like 31 and 21, and no, they were turning 32 and 22. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, how did this even happen? And how easy it was to be so fully consumed in a job that was killing me.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that that was an experience for me to see exactly what burnout is,
Yep.
and to fully understand that, because that's not something that I ever experienced in my life. And it's just now I feel like I'm finally back to myself, where my brain is functioning and working properly. We get brought to those learnings or teachings throughout our lives if
Yeah.
we're not fully where we need to be.
Absolutely. They're necessary lessons. And that's the other piece, is being able to realize that it, not playing the victim, that it happened for you, not to you. And that's not easy to do. To be able to take a step back from the situation that you are in, to step outside of it and look within, find the silver lining or find the gift, whatever you want to call it, the lesson, gift, silver, and take that forward to better
Mhm.
yourself, to move forward and change
Absolutely.
things. You're the only
And
one that can change, that can make those changes.
absolutely. Absolutely. It helped me look at what I was doing in terms of being a therapist and a trainer, and how I was willing to give that up to go and do this job to start. And then coming back to it, it really began my spiritual journey. Like again, it
Mhm.
reset my spiritual journey in terms of, one, I needed to heal from that,
Yeah.
but also to maybe break free of some of the parameters around spirituality in the line of work that I do.
And so, how has your work in counseling and teaching influenced your own personal growth and understanding of your cultural identity?
Absolutely. I mean, whenever I do a counseling session, it's absolutely a reminder to me, because I think that it's almost like a pep talk, right? I feel so good because I've just given somebody all of the teaching that I could possibly pull from to help them see life in a different perspective. When I go out there, and even in terms of the cultural awareness training, because it's such a hard topic, it really is a hard topic. And I want to come from a place where I'm not blaming or making anyone feel bad for what's happened. I just want people to understand what has happened.
Mhm.
And like they asked me for the answers. What can we do in terms of reconciliation? I don't know. If you were when you were a kid and you punched another kid, what did you have to do?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, we can have some input on that, but it's not up to us to really, determine what needs to be done. We can tell you, but if it
Mhm.
doesn't come from you, it's not the same kind of learning, right?
That's
So,
right.
so I think that a lot of it is self-reflective on me because I am imparting what I know. And like I said, I honestly feel like it's being channeled from Creator, because sometimes I say things where I think about it later and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that to like this massive group of people.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Can you share a couple of the most valuable insights that you've gained from working simultaneously in both capacities as a counselor and a teacher?
So the biggest learnings that I have received, I would say that they say the more the less. And I think it's not really fully that. It's more about being self-reflective and understanding that there's always all kinds of new information to integrate into life.
Mhm.
And that is even in the counseling aspect. It was interesting. I had signed up to do that EMDR before I took that position for that couple of years. And so when I came back, I hadn't done it because I was doing this other position. And I was, oh, why do I have to do this? I didn't, my brain wasn't there to be able to do it. But I'm so glad that I did do it because it is so effective.
Mhm.
But here I was like kicking stones down the road type of thing when I was trying to learn this new modality of helping people. And just like hypnotherapy, it is I would say it's 100%, they say 98. I mean, and it's
Mm.
immediate relief from those emotional issues. So it's just always being open
Yeah.
and trusting that what is being brought to you on your path is what you need to have a look at.
Yeah. They say if it's on your heart, it's meant for you, right? So
Mhm.
just don't resist. Just go. I mean, feel into it, of course,
Mhm.
but it's there for a reason. It's
Yes.
being brought to you for a reason. It's being put on your heart for a reason. So look at that. Again, it goes back to the self-reflection, right? Taking the time to
Absolutely.
reflect.
And even right now, I'm facing this major dilemma or decision again for myself. There's a call for an Indigenous JP in my area. And so I've done the application.
Mhm.
I've gone to go view court. But I think it's going to put me in a box. And I don't really think that I can handle being put in a box. And I really, truly do wholeheartedly believe that I am here to impart what I've learned and the healing that I've gone through so that people can feel that it's okay to do that too.
We're not meant to be in boxes. We're not meant to
No,
be in boxes, period.
no. But I look at the money, I look at the prestige, I look at all
Yeah.
those things, right?
Yep. We're human
But
beings.
absolutely. But just to remember that we're always going to be tested, maybe,
Yes. Agreed.
um, with how much we want to stay on that higher path for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Tested, tempted, whatever you want to call it, right?
Exactly.
It's all, it
Exactly.
is a test for sure.
Yeah.
How can non-Indigenous individuals and institutions become better allies and supporters of First Nations counselors and teachers?
I think if they can reach out to First Nations people in their area, the ones that are the ancestral land holders, because I find that, say, for example, in my areas, they might call someone from BC to come over here to speak about First Nations issues. You need to go to the First Nations that live on the ancestral lands that you are living on, and to find out and to learn as much as you can about the history, about the past relationships, about really who we are and and the challenges that we are facing, because we are continuing, what we see are side effects to that genocide that we've experienced. And that genocide, those impacts are still, we're still in the fallout of that, because it's maybe not as blatant as it was before, but is absolutely alive and well on a covert, under the line kind of level. If you can do whatever you can to walk beside the First Nations people in the land or on the land that you're living, and really get a full sense with being not the expert, but the supporter to those people, I think that we'd be heading in a really good direction that way.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Trish, how do you specifically support and empower First Nations women in your counseling and educational programs?
In the counseling, I do talk about it, of course, being a First Nations woman. So I do talk about it in my trainings. When I get to a point of talking about our culture, being a First Nations woman and the women being the life givers and the caregivers of the nations, and how that legislation was directly to remove the First Nations women from those nations. That is how, and I just relate to people in terms of how women have been treated in Canada. I relate to the women in terms of when was it that we were able to vote as women, as non-Native women could vote in Canada or in Ontario. It was different throughout the different provinces. But to be able to have women really understand that we not only were the life givers and the caregivers, but when we became grandmothers, we were also the decision makers. And we were the ones that appointed those frontmen or those chiefs to go out and I come from the Crane clan. And so the Crane clan is the outside relationships. So it's our responsibility as being Crane to negotiate treaties, to make those relationships with the outside world. But it's those grandmothers who appoint those people to go out and to do that. And so if a man were to get too big of a head, it was the grandmothers that could take that leadership position back again. And
Wow.
so you really need to have a look at that and see the importance of the role of women within nations and within all nations. When I spoke on that world stage, I had many women come to me after I spoke. They really felt what I was saying. And I'm sure we're probably quite envious the way that our women are treated here in Canada and in around the world, which is probably a lot better than what they're going through. Any chance I get, I was a women's counselor for many years. And even my Ancestral Ascensions podcast, I try to pinpoint First Nations women, young and old.
Thank you for sharing that. Can you talk a bit about your counseling and learning center that you founded, when you founded it, what was the inspiration behind starting it all?
Yeah, so I kind of founded the learning center that I'm currently in. I tried to open it up before having my master's degree, but at the time, I couldn't go forward with it. So I had to go and do my master's. So I went and did my master's, and sure enough, there was a place that was just right there, ready to be rented. So that was back in 2016. And the landlords have been great where I'm renting my space. And so my whole idea, because I've always counseled and taught, I needed a place to teach and I needed a place to do the counseling. So this place had all of that, and it was right downtown Owen Sound. And then since then, last year, I was able to buy the retail store that was next to me that was a crystal shop. Totally goes in line with the teaching as well. And I actually call it a gift shop. So it's called All My Relations Gift Shop because I sell the gifts that we can use to heal. And so we have crystals and we have medicines and we have herbs and we have tarot and we have singing bowls, and we like all of the things within reason, of course. I'd like to expand that. We're just getting off the ground, but yeah, that's been going since last year. And so it's been over 8 years now for my counseling practice. And the cultural awareness I was doing out of my home since 2007, actually, just because the teaching has always been a big part of what I do.
Yeah. Can you share some misconceptions or stereotypes about First Nations people that you encounter, and how do you address them in your work?
So I think there's two sides to this, of course. So, of course, there's the derogatory ones where our people are all addicted, that we don't have the smarts in order to cope in life, those kinds of things, or that we're violent, all of these kinds of things, which are absolutely side effects of residential school systems and colonization and oppression, or that we're all shamans and that we all have all the answers. I must be an Indian princess. And so I do tell people, yes, when they ask me if I am an Indian princess. So they're one or the other. Or I've also had people message me to ask if I could teach them how to be a shaman. And so this has been a really interesting experience for me, of course. And so it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
And we have to be really very careful. Like for me, I'm okay because I'm a cultural trainer. I've experienced, like, you name it, all kinds of different questions. And I taught at the post-secondary level, teaching First Nations history and all of that kind of thing too. So I've had, you name it, all kinds.
Can I ask you, sorry to interrupt you, Trish,
Sure.
but when you get questions about this kind of, does it piss you off or frustrate you, or do you just take it as this is curiosity and they're just asking?
I just take it as it's curiosity and
Yeah.
they're just asking, because if they don't have a safe place to ask, how are they supposed to be able to know what the answers are?
True.
Like when I taught at the post-secondary level, that's when that was a really good eye-opener for me, because I thought that everybody had like a baseline of Indigenous knowledge, and most Canadians do not have a baseline of Indigenous knowledge. And I would think that too, like even newcomers coming into Canada now, that there's a portion that they would learn about First Nations people. They do not. They don't know that we even exist here. So this is what I'm saying. So if they do not feel like, I think that I'm approachable enough that they're able to ask me those kinds of questions. And so I look at it, I will give you the answer. I mean, fully, wholeheartedly. The only time, like I said, is if someone asks me if I'm an Indian princess. But otherwise, I give them honest answers. And some people say, if First Nations people are having such a hard time, why don't they just leave the reserve? And it's a question that is being asked from no baseline information whatsoever. And with that being said, if you were to ask any First Nations person that, they wouldn't necessarily be able to give you an answer.
Right.
Like this has been a lifelong journey for me to come to find those answers, to ask spiritually as well as academically and historically how to find these answers even. And if it wasn't for what my grandfather did and that my great aunt Verna did, or my auntie Colleen, I mean, I have had opportunities to learn those things. Like this was a really good example. I was asked when my oldest son was very young, grade 2, I think it was, the teacher had asked if I could come in and do dream catchers with the class.
Okay.
And so I said, sure, I'll come in and do that. So I was doing dream catchers. Me and another person went in because you would need that for that many kids teaching. And
you were teaching them how to make dream catchers, or teaching them about dream catchers? Like
how to make dream catchers.
Okay.
Yeah, and about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes hand in hand. Like whenever we teach something, and this is the really important piece, especially around appropriation that we see that's going on when we have non-Indigenous people taking our gifts and trying to pass them off as their own teachings, that is absolutely appropriation.
Yeah.
Now, if you learn a gift that we have given you, use it for your own personal use, and that is all.
Yeah.
You can talk to other people about it, but I don't. It becomes appropriation when you learn our gifts and then sell them to other people. But anyways, we're in the class, and my son is there, and he thought that he should just automatically know how to do this. But I had never taught him prior to going into the class, which maybe I should have done so that he could be part of the helping. But he became I think there was a lot of shame there, humiliation in terms of not being able to help me do what I was teaching his class.
Right.
And so this is not common knowledge for all people, for all of our people, even unless they've made a concerted effort to find out, as I have done, or as some others have done. This is not common knowledge for the average person. Absolutely.
Right.
So I think that being very careful with that. Yeah.
Okay. For listeners who may not be familiar with, which we know a lot of listeners aren't, as we've just discussed, a lot of new Canadians coming into the country have no clue, have no baseline. Could you share a couple of key insights or foundational aspects that you believe everybody should know?
From a First Nations perspective?
Yeah.
I guess that we all have gifts to share. When we look at that medicine wheel, not only does it represent the 4 parts of self, but it also represents the 4 races of man. And so when we look at that holistic, which includes all of humankind, and when we look at all of humankind, that it is fundamental, absolutely imperative to know that as human beings, we have the ability to have free choice. That is what separates us from the animals, from the plants, from all of those things. And we are the 4th level, or the youngest on Mother Earth. Of course, the rocks and all of those, we call them the grandmothers and the grandfathers. They were the first that were here. After that became the plant life. And then from there, we had the animals and the fish and all of that, and then the human beings. Now, all of those 3 levels above us or before us, however you want to look at that, they live their lives according to instinct. We have the ability to have free choice. So if you are finding yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in, you can absolutely choose to move yourself out of it. And that we have those relationships. So I would think, I don't know what I even said for the first one, but most ones, that's what I think, that we're all here to work together as one, as humankind, knowing our gifts, having that ability to have free choice, and that having that self-reflection and those relationships, and relationship to self absolutely is the core. So if I were to choose those, I think that those would be the most fundamental teachings that we need to be able to carry with us. So when we're ready to blame someone else, our parents or our siblings or whoever, for being in the situation that we're in, we can absolutely choose ourselves out of those situations.
Yeah. Now, as mentioned, you are a certified consulting hypnotist. So can you tell us about that work that you do as a consulting hypnotist, and what inspired you to become certified, and how do you integrate or tie this into your work as a counselor and teacher?
So it's interesting. When you said teacher, I'm thinking, oh, I don't do that, but I do actually. So I use it in my therapy to help. It depends on the situation, but sometimes if somebody is so worked up that they just can't even calm themselves down, I will use hypnosis just to get them to relax. And oftentimes they find themselves being in the most relaxed state that they've ever been in their entire life. And I also have used it when I go to speak to large crowds, especially when it comes to self-care. So I will do the teachings from a First Nations perspective, and then I will I call it a guided visualization, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And I will use that. And I wasn't sure, like my first group was like 300 people. and I wasn't sure how it was going to go with a group that large. But the responses I get afterwards and the change in the energy throughout the entire audience is just absolutely amazing. And so that's what I use that hypnotherapy for. So it allows people to shut out the outside world for a little bit, come back into self, make sure that they are grounded and centered in Mother Earth, and then allow for them to expand a little bit more beyond their physical body. Or beyond the roles that they play in life, as mother, as professional, as sibling, whatever that is. So to get out of the roles that we play and connect to higher self, to spirit, however you want to look at that.
Beautiful. Who in your life, Trish, has had the biggest impact on you, and why?
The biggest impact on me? I don't know. There's many people who have had big impact, but I would say maybe my children. I
Yeah.
think if it wasn't for my children, like I probably wouldn't be here where I am today. As I said, I was a 17-year-old
Hmm.
who became a mother at a very young age. I did not have my education. Like I had dropped out in grade 11. And so when I had my first son, he's the one who saved my life. When I had my second son, I thought, oh my gosh, I have two sons. I'm going to need to go and get my education. And so that's what I did. And so with having the two boys, that's what really pushed me to go and get my education. And then finding myself on a wayward path and having another two sons and being a single mother of four boys and having to make my way in the world, that really has what pushed me, gave me the motivation to get through school, to do my healing, to help others and use the experiences in my life to help others overcome challenges in their life. So I would absolutely say it would be my children.
Incredible. I love it.
Mhm.
What would you say was a turning point in your life, and how did it affect you?
So I think a big turning point in my life. What was a big turning point? I think when I finally was able to leave my ex-husband, it was a very abusive relationship on all levels. And that was a situation where I felt like I was in jail. I had to escape the warden. And with not only just myself, but with four children as well, and
Yeah.
everyone being fully intact. And I mean
Yeah.
physically, mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritual, on all levels, being able to leave that situation. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. I was dealing with, of course, systems, child welfare system, judicial system, all of the different systems against a white male, being a First Nations woman, of course. Thankfully, I would say that it is with my ancestors, with my spirit guides, with my spirit council, whoever it was that helped me get through that first year initially, and then that I was able to eventually buy a house for us by an absolute miracle, I would have to say.
Mm.
And I'm still in this same house today after all of these years. It's almost 20 years. This is the house we're in now. It looks drastically different, of course, than it did
Yeah.
when I first bought it, but I'm still in that very same house. And it's been this home base for me and my boys all of these years.
Mhm. Amazing strength
Mhm.
and courage and resilience. I love
Mhm.
it. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful, Trish?
I think I am so faithful and so trusting in Creator. I mean, I think, and I'm so thankful that who's passed away, my dad actually passed away in that first week that I got my house here. And I was thankful that I had this house for that last week of his life.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very strong Catholic belief system. And I don't know if it was necessarily the Catholic in general, but he wanted us to make sure that we had a really strong faith foundation
Mm-hmm.
to believe in something greater than ourselves. And I think that it was through him teaching me that brought me through all of the hard times. It was that, as well as, like I said, that little bit of a glimpse of our culture and ceremonies, being a very young person through my uncles or through my mom, that really, I knew that I was destined to be more than what met the eye. And I still feel that. And I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
So,
We're ever growing and learning and expanding. So the journey never
mhm,
ends.
absolutely.
Speaking of success, how do you define that word? What does success mean to you?
I think success is one, healing yourself, listening to that inner guidance, that those niggling or underlying thoughts, I guess. It's those underlying thoughts that it's like you can see you having that thought that actually makes sense to you. And I would say that's where that spiritual guidance comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we think about a shaker that we use in our culture, they say that it is the sound of the shaker that are thoughts from creator. And so that was the first thing that was created, was the sound. And with that being said, I'm learning more and more about sound healing and all of those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. You just like the first basic teachings that I got as a young person, it's like they've expanded on more and newer levels. I'm probably totally forgot what the question is that you've asked me.
Success. What does success mean to you? How do you define
Success.
success?
So I think that success is, yeah, following your life path. And I know I'm frozen, so I don't know how I unfreeze myself, but
I don't know. We'll just have to roll with it. It's okay.
I can turn my camera off and turn it back on again. That
Sure.
seems to
Try
be.
that and see.
But I would definitely say, oh no, that's
No.
not working.
That's okay.
I would definitely say that finding your gifts and sharing them with the world, I would absolutely say that is success. And if you can make a living at it as well, the power to you, I would say that's definitely success.
Yeah. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
I would say that empowerment is mutually raising your energy. So not to be more powerful than someone else, but when I think of empowerment, I think of the energy that Mother Earth gives us and how that energy flows into us and raises us into that higher level or that higher frequency. And so that it's not to be above anyone else, of course, but to shine your light so that others can shine their light as well with you, so that you don't have to make yourself small. It reminds me of that Marianne Williamson poem, Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is to shine ever so brightly and not to shrink ourselves. So I'd say that's what empowerment is to me.
We're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3, 4-word answer type thing. Okay.
Okay.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Passionate.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
To listen to yourself.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Changing the legacy of our people.
If you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what song would it be?
Cover Me in Sunshine by Pink.
What is one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
I think my sense of humor through all of the adversity.
What is one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
Good relationships with all people.
Beautiful. That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I threw in a bonus question that I did not send you ahead of time. If you could take one feeling or one belief and bottle it up and give it to people, what would it be?
Gratitude.
If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think you've covered it pretty good.
Okay. Thank you. I received that. Thank you very much. If you had the opportunity, Trish, to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I've kind of been pondering this one, and I think Maya Angelou would be a really good one because she is a person of color, and because she's had to come through her own adversities. I think that she would be an amazing person to sit down and speak with. Absolutely.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Listen to your spirit. Follow your spirit. Absolutely would. Yeah. I know we experience things because we must, but I think back and there are things that I wish that I could change for sure.
Okay. Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your corner of the world, your tribe, your people, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
That it's about unity and it's not about separation. It's about inclusivity, not exclusivity. I think that when we label ourselves, that is what creates the exclusivity. We need to come together and not have to define ourselves so deeply.
Beautiful. Trish, thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today, for sharing all about the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do, for educating me, for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge. And I'm just so grateful to be connected to you and to have you as a member of the Empowerography community. I have thoroughly enjoyed every minute of our conversation. You are a beautiful, bright light in the world. Thank you for doing all the work that you do. And just thank you for being beautiful you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. It's been a great interview, and I'm so very happy to have this information being shared with the world.
I cannot wait to share it.
Thank you.
Once again, my name is Brad Welsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. My guest today has been Trish Meekins. She is the owner of the Nikaanaganaa. Did I get that right? Nikaanaganaa Counselling and Learning Centre. She is a counselor, a teacher, a social worker, and a certified consulting hypnotist. Thank you so much, Trish. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.